Good afternoon, everybody watching live through LinkedIn, through YouTube, through Twitch, through X, and any other conceivable platform we can connect this live stream to. It is Freeformers and Friends, brought to you on a Thursday afternoon, 4 p.m. UK time, but we are international here. So our next guest will tell us what time it is, where they are, and I will introduce those in a second. But it's beautiful weather here in the UK. It's great. Like summer has finally, here in June, happened, which is great. But it is very, very warm here in the log cabin. So if I do pass out, my guest is just going to have to hold the fort and just talk by himself until I recover. So without further ado, let's get our guest on. Actually, before I do that, if anybody is watching, if anybody is tuned in straight away and is just waiting at 4 p.m., to wait for us to go live. Get talking in the comments. If you're watching live, I just want to know where in the world you're watching from. So we've had loads of comments over the past couple of weeks about our guests and who the people are talking. And like I say, we are kind of going international. So yeah, if you're watching, in the comments, drop us a little tag about where you are. Maybe we're British. I'm British, right? So tell us what the weather's like where you are. And stuff like that. But without further ado, I am delighted to welcome to the stage. This is called Freeformers and Friends. I got to admit, Josh Drean is not actually a friend of mine. In fact, we've probably spoken for a total of 20 minutes. So I hope I'm not doing a disservice by saying, Josh, not yet a friend. Welcome to Freeformers and Friends. How you doing, my friend?
It only takes 20 minutes, 20 minutes to really understand someone's heart, someone's mind. This is a vibe session right now. So of course we're friends.
It takes me about 25 minutes. So the first 5 minutes of this, then we'll have a little clacks
we'll
and
really
go
be
off.
rolling. Yes, I love it. Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, no, thank you for coming in. And I think you're the first guest on Freeformers and Friends who's completely outdone me on background, on backdrop. It's incredible. What have you got going on behind you?
I hear that it's a high bar to set, but we both nerd out on colorful lights. So I've got, some colorful lights that we have synced before. How can that not be a friendship that we've actually synced our lights together so far? I've got some neon lights. I've got some skateboards. I'm a big skateboarder. I've got some video equipment up because I'm a big YouTuber. So I spent so much time in this room that I feel like you got to make it your own, or else you'll go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to spend the majority of your life in one single room, you may as well enjoy it, right? It's got to be somewhere a space you enjoy. So yeah, it's cool that like I say, you've completely outdone me. You've got skateboards on the wall, and you can't really see the stuff I have on the sides now, but I have my wrestling outfit. That's as bad as cool as it gets. So.
Well, the Legos are the real treat.
You've got Legos.
No, you've got Legos.
Oh, I've got Legos. Yeah, I have Legos just down here. We have lots of Legos. I was like, oh my word, we're going to be even more friends if you've got like a load of Legos behind you, just like hiding.
I've got loads of buckets of Legos that my kids play with that are all, we buy the nice Legos and they build it once and then break it and it'll never ever go back. So, we've got buckets of mismatched parts.
That is just like a panic attack for me waiting to happen. I can't look at that and not want to try and organize it and separate it into its sets. But
yeah, you wouldn't love
it. The question I usually ask here on Freeformers and Friends, the first question I ask is, why are we friends? So this is going to be completely interesting because now we have just tipped over the 25 mark. So we now are officially friends. Why are we friends? Why are we here?
That's it. It's funny too, because you are deep in the UK and I am over in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which I didn't think were tied together at all. But I started reaching out to some of the conference planners of Disrupt HR out here in Minneapolis. And I met Sam, and Sam is, in the UK as well. And she said, you have to meet this guy. He's great. And it's just been so interesting to get to know you a little bit, know that you're a Green Bay Packers fan. And that you're coming out to Minneapolis in the fall, which, an interesting tie for all of us.
Yeah, so big shout out to Callie as well, co-organizer of Disrupt HR Minneapolis St. Paul. You're speaking at that, right? We're sharing the stage that night. Is that right?
We will be on stage together, and we will be hopefully sharing a drink afterwards.
That's so cool. Have you written your talk yet? Do you know what you're talking about?
Disrupt is kind of next level. And you get 6 minutes. You get a nice tight window. So I have the idea, but I feel like the rounds and rounds of iterations that need to go through before it's TED level amazing is, we'll be there. We'll get there at that time.
And you mean TED as in the conference, not the Seth MacFarlane film, right?
I was referring to the conference, but also a great series. I don't know if anyone's seen the actual the movies, obviously, but they just came out with a series, a show that's hilarious. So
I've not,
love
yeah,
it as
because
well.
this is like it's like a prequel, right? Like when they were young.
Yeah, it's when Mark Wahlberg is a kid apparently, and they're just kind of going through what it's like to grow up in the '80s. And I will claim to be a baby of the '80s. I was born in '87, so I fully like resonate with just the challenges of kids at that time, pre-social media. We actually went outside and had to interact with our world.
I know, what a crazy time. I'm also 87, so this is okay. We're kindred spirits. Like this is everything is aligning. You're the Minneapolis version of me, albeit way more good looking and a way cooler background.
Hey man, we're a yin yang right here, and I think we just moved into best friend categories. So
Wow.
we're on a roll.
It's like that scene, the film Step Brothers, when they kind of ask each other questions. It's like, did we just become best friends? I think so.
Yes, yes, what a classic.
So you're speaking at Disrupt HR, Minneapolis, St. Paul. You think you know what you're going to talk about. You know what you're going to talk about. You're not necessarily done the actual talk yet. What are you? What's the vibe? Like, what kind of vibe are you going to be bringing to that event?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I just finished writing a book. Me and my co-author Deborah Perry Pashoni, who is incredible. I've got stacks and stacks of papers here. This is the official manuscript, and you can see the title there is
Screenshot.
yeah, screenshot that. There you go. Employment is Dead is the title of the book. How disruptive technologies are revolutionizing the way we work. It is being published with Harvard Business Review Press in January. And the reason we landed on that title is because it's pretty disruptive, right? That's what Disrupt HR is all about. And we have a pretty strong message that traditional means of employment were designed at a time where industry was everything, productivity was everything, completing tasks quickly was everything, and it doesn't serve us in the age of information. We move too fast and need too much brain power to just sit there and push a button, which is
Yeah.
how work is designed right now. So it'll probably be around that, the subject of the book.
How? There's so many questions to unpack. Like, how close are you to finishing the book? Like, what kind of state are we in?
It is done. The official manuscript is over to HBR. The copy edits are done. So we are officially moving out of writing mode. We are coming out of the cave, if you will, which has been a long time. I mean, we've been over a year just pulling together the research and putting the book together. But it's kind of nice to step outside, see the sun a little bit. We're gonna start doing some pretty heavy marketing come fall. But I think I should take a few weeks off for the summer. Relax a
Yeah.
little bit. It's same thing here in Minneapolis, right? It takes a long time for summer to finally come around, and we're there. So we're gonna take advantage of the 2 weeks of summer we get before it starts getting cold again.
I love it. And the biggest question about anybody who's about to publish a book: do you know what the front cover is going to look like?
We do actually. We actually have an Amazon link. So if you Google "Employment is Dead" book, you'll see our book on Amazon, on Target, Barnes and Noble, and the cover itself it's quite interesting. It's an office chair that is glitching out, so you can kind of see some metaverse colors there, some purples and some blues, a little bit of a neon. It kind of matches the background, if you will. But the idea is that sitting 9 to 5 within an office, completing tasks is dead. Ah, hey, there we go.
Here it is, right? So this is
That's the one. Yep. So we're really proud of that. Really excited about what the team at HBR has come up with.
that's so cool. Like most books on this topic tend to look like a textbook and really dull. But what you've done there is like craft something that's really cool. That's really
I'm not gonna lie, we did have lots of iterations going back and forth because it did
yeah.
look like a textbook up front, but we're really happy where it landed.
Yeah, you should be. It looks awesome. How long has this process taken you then? So you've written a book with your co-author Deborah, like how, from beginning to end. Like we're going, it's live in January, you say? So from there
January,
to now,
yeah.
yeah. How long
Yeah,
has it taken?
it's fascinating. I mean, the process is so Deborah and I first met, and it was very similar to you and I. It was like, high five, let's write a book together. We put together a proposal, and this is before anything is set in stone, right? You have to put together the outline of the book. So we just let our excitement about HR and employment pull us in the direction that it needed to. We ended up coming up with 100-page proposal, and you get a literary agent that essentially brings it to all of the publishing houses and says, "Hey, here's a book, a potential book. Do you want it or not?" And we pitched it to about 10 agencies. And sometimes people don't hear anything. Sometimes one comes through and it's a perfect fit. We actually had 4 that were interested in the book, which was unexpected and really exciting. So when that happens, it goes to auction, where they essentially enter a bidding war to get the book. And HBR came out on top, which we were thrilled about. We really wanted, to have some credibility behind the book. But I will say, it started off as a metaverse book. This was this is 2021, right? So we are talking about Web3 and the metaverse and how it's shaping work. And as we've kind of seen interest decline and got more serious about the research, we didn't pivot too much. I think the principles stayed the same, which is that work is evolving, but it looks less like you're going to be in a virtual office in the metaverse and your avatar is going to be chatting with your boss, which again, there's still plenty of cool work being done in that space. And I still believe that will be the future, but it's more focused on what emerging technologies are going to look like for a new model of employment. So yeah, it's taken probably so that's 2021, right? And it publishes in
Yeah.
2025. So I would say 4 years in total for the whole process.
Wow. And so like you say, the movement of technology in that time has continued. We're gonna write a book and technology is gonna stay still. That's not going to be the case, right? So it's constantly evolving. Even as you sit here now, having the finished manuscript, are you kind of already planning like what the next edition of this book will be? Because there'll be some tweaks and changes. Do you think there's some of the philosophy because of the technology changing?
Yeah, so let me talk about my kind of overall thoughts with the process.
Yeah.
Because book writing, especially when you have emerging AI technologies, right? Everything is moving so fast and information is available in an instant. Back in the day, right, it made sense to have an idea, really get clear on that idea, and work all the way through until like you can publish that, and then it sticks around for 5 to 10 years, and it's like, and then you do like a second iteration or whatnot. Whereas in today's world, I feel like we're already behind because you can have new things happen today and you can tweet about it or you can make a TikTok about it. And so information is available so much more readily and so much faster. And like it comes in and goes out just as fast. So I would say there is a lot of work to get to a place where once you have the book done, like we're still 6 months out, right? Like how much of this is, we wrote heavily about AI, and I know that the principles that we wrote the book on are sound, but I mean, the examples and the case studies are going to be obsolete. So what does that mean for the publishing agency? What does that mean for HBR? What does that mean for all of these book writers? And how do we do that better as well? Part of our message, employment is dead, is we can say a lot of these traditional ways of getting knowledge and information is dead as well. Toby, I think we got you on mute all of a sudden.
That's me. That's me on mute because I muted myself because I was doing some clicky tappy stuff so I could throw up the QR code for the book is right there. So if you scan that, you go to Amazon, you'll find the book Employment T is Dead. Unfortunately, employment is too big a word topic and too big a word for the QR code right there. But that'll throw you over to the Amazon page. So go check it out, pre-order it. I think for the cover alone and the synopsis you've just given out there, like people should be buying this book in their absolute droves. So what is your like overarching view for the future of work? Then, so what is that? What is kind of the philosophy that the book is based on? That we're going to fundamentally shift away from this, as we call it in the UK, a Victorian way of thinking about employment.
I love that, right? For me, it all stems from employee experience design and employee engagement. I mean, the starting point is that employees are extremely unhappy with the way things are in today's world. And it's not just employment, it's everything from the cost of living to the political divide that we're seeing often, to so many more elements that just make up the experience of being a human in today's world. And coming out of the pandemic, it's not great, especially when you look at the flood of TikToks that are being posted often and go viral around how unhappy employees are, especially the younger generation is with the system. And we could throw numbers out all day, right? I nerd out on this stuff. So you look at the Gallup poll, employee engagement is the lowest it's been in 11 years. 79% of the workforce is either not engaged or actively disengaged. And
Is
there's
that a US statistic?
that is a global
That's a
statistic.
global one.
That's
Though.
a global
Okay.
workforce trends from Gallup. And,
Yeah.
and it just feels like employers hear that number and they're like, okay, like it's assumed that that's the case, right? And that's the big problem, is that we've gotten used to this work as a contract where you sign away a portion of your day to us and we are going to pay you a certain amount for that. And that model just blows my mind. And the crazy thing is that most companies recognize this and they realize that it's a problem, because we know that a happy employee is a productive employee. But when you start to unpack why employees aren't happy, how many companies are actually willing to do something about it? I mean, and they'll take steps into the pool a little bit, right? It's, let's get a ping pong table so that they can play at lunch. Let's get some snacks. Let's cater food. Let's offer additional perks in some way. And that just is not going to cut it. What we need to be doing is actually listening to our people to find out what it is they want, and then doing everything in our power to give it to them, regardless of if they're being petty or lazy. And I think this is perfectly apparent in this kind of return to office movement. You see executives who want employees back in the office for, understandable reasons. We can collaborate. There's more serendipitous moments of connecting by the water cooler. We're more productive. We're more human. All of the reasons, right? But then you look at the reasons why employees, the majority of them, don't want to return to the office. It's because of a long commute. It's because they can't get certain things done during the day. Whereas, I work a couple hours at night, so I'm going to do my laundry at 10 a.m. That's kind of okay while I'm working and doing my thing. And so the premise of the book is we actually have 10 operating principles. And what I like to ask my HR audiences when I'm speaking to them is, can you offer any of these to your employees? And the 10 operating principles, we can look at them in detail if we want to, but it's flexibility, it's transparency, it's ownership, it's decision-making. Can you offer these perks, if you will, these benefits to employees? And if the answer is no, why should they work for you?
Yeah.
Why should they ever consider it? And you can keep running with this, oh, well, that's just work. It's just hard. And that's just how life is. Or you could recognize that there are emerging technologies that are coming out, a DAO, for instance. And now we're getting into the weeds here, Toby. So you stop me if we get too far in. But a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization where you don't have a boss. Imagine what that says to an employee. One of the reasons why you hate your job is because you hate having a boss. How many times have we heard, you don't quit your job, you quit your boss? It's because managers either aren't trained very well or they don't have the talent and ability to be a manager. They're typically top performers that were put into that position because they're good at their job, but they're not good at managing people, right? And so you see this disengagement happen because of managers. Well, a DAO makes it possible for you to remove that manager. And now you can work together as a community under a smart contract where everyone gets to vote. What do we do? How do we get there? Here's the goal, but we get to decide. And now you have flexibility, autonomy, decision-making power. And so I guess I'm getting really excited about this because what I'm trying to say is essentially all of the pains that employees are feeling that can't be solved through employee experience design. How do we design a better experience? How do we do a journey map? How do we do all of these elements to help employees feel good in their job? It's like, oh, well, the things that they really hate, you can't give them or you can't fix. And so we're seeing disgruntled employees jump from job to job. They're going to jump from a job to being a core contributor for a DAO in the metaverse. Whew. How was that?
That was that had that was great. Again, you say one thing and then my brain just goes up in multiple tangents. But the thing that I absolutely love about what you've just described is, for my whole working career, working in HR teams, the most antiquated and annoying department tends to be leadership development. Leadership development is like, blow off the textbook. Let's have a look how to be a leader. It's like, okay, we'll do this again, right? And then you kind of get these thousands of pounds, hundreds of thousands of pounds spent on leadership programs to try and solve the thing that you've just described. But ultimately, what you're saying is actually that's probably not the right answer. The answer is it's impossible. It's probably impossible to have at scale the quality of leadership you need to give people all of those things. Because I believe there are some leaders that are able to do that, but very, very few. So actually remove those out of the way, and that actually solves the problem. So you're kind of disrupting a whole leadership development industry, which I am all for, with that. So I don't really know if that's a question, but more of an observation to kind of throw back at you. And like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like that, right? And there's a couple elements here, right? First and foremost, when you really think about it, having a manager is just a technology that we invented. We have all of these tasks that need to be completed, and if we just send people out to build a car on their own, they're not going to be managed. They're not going to know what fits into the next thing and the flow and maybe the timing. There's a lot of elements that we need management for, and that served people very well at the time. Do we still need that level of management? And I'm not saying to throw it out entirely. I'm just saying let's evolve it, right? Maybe we don't need that many managers. Maybe we don't need that tall of a hierarchy, right? How about instead of going through 6 levels of approval all the way up the chain, we only have 1? And what if part of that approval process is outsourced to AI or a smart contract? We've already determined how we're going to work together, and we've kind of set forth that form. So now we are agile and we are empowered. Imagine that, right? And here's what's interesting, right? There's a Bayer, but Bayer Pharmaceuticals is real close to going under, right? And they've been around forever, and they've designed all sorts of medicines, better or worse, right? There's a politically charged organization, but the CEO decided that the only way they're going to survive is to get rid of managers, and so they removed the entire mid-level management layer. Most of these people either found a new job or they went back to being on the front line where they kind of started. And the idea was, we just need to get it done. If your company is moving slow because of bureaucracy, you're losing in today's world. It's 2024. You cannot not innovate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think human resources, training teams, learning development teams, talent leadership, anyone that sits within a HR function, right, quite naturally prohibits anything that you're describing, because their very existence is predicated on them kind of reinforcing the status quo. Like that you're not going to, as an organization, you're not going to move to anywhere near what you just described, because the function that looks after your people probably isn't agile enough and adaptable enough to flex to anything close to that. And the one example I give is skills-based organizations. So there's a huge swathe of conversation happening at the moment, particularly in learning and development industries, about how do we create skills-based organizations and how do learning and HR teams enable that. And you're like, well, hang on a second. Have a bit of self-reflection first from a people perspective and go, HR and learning teams, are you kind of able to be skills-based and move these people around in that way? Because if you're not, how on earth are you enabled to tell other people how to do it in an organization, right? And quite naturally, what I think happens in these smaller organizations is people just figure this stuff out because there isn't anything in the way or anyone trying to control it. companies of 50 people. Spoke to one yesterday. No HR, no learning and development team, no recruiter sitting there. They just get stuff done. Now, there are some challenges, but once that stuff has moved out the way, they're kind of able to forge their own path. Whereas maybe having someone looking after your people development kind of forces you down a path that they define, not the industry, not the technology or anything like that. What do you think to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for skills-based development, right? We've definitely moved away from experience-based to skills-based, or at least we should. If you're listening to this and you haven't yet, make the change. It's not, oh, I got a 4-year degree and that gives me seniority over someone else, or I've been at this company for 12 years and so I get the gold watch, or whatever it used to be, right? It's not an experience thing. It's all based on skills. Can you get the job done? I don't care if you went to college or not. Can you get the job done? And can you work well with teams? What are the soft skills that are tied in there, right? So I agree that HR has a huge opportunity and challenge to kind of get to that place, right, where we are kind of moving into more of I would say, a talent marketplace, right? You see these tools like Fuel 50 and Gloat, who are kind of changing the game. Where is the untapped talent at the organization? Where are the teams that we can form to be more productive? And that needs to that's HR's job, right? Is to figure out how to do that. And we're talking deeply, like moving away from personnel management, doing payroll. I hope we can all agree that most of that is all of that is going to be automated. All of that's going to be covered through AI. So what is this new role? Is it L&D, like you talked about? Is it that skills-based management? Is it all of the above? And just to highlight, you kind of made the comparison of like a corporate company that has their form and function, has their culture, does it a certain way. And then you talk about a startup that can move so much with so much more agility. And it's just always been the case where innovative technologies are going to be driven forth by startups because they can move faster. Whereas to pivot in a large organization, it's just not going to work. So what does it look like for HR? And what does HR actually look like in a company that typically doesn't have HR? These are the questions that we're having. And I like to highlight it in a way where if you look at how, let's say, the generational communication styles, right? Where we had emails. I keep getting my thumbs up here.
This is how we know we've had 2 people on Freeformers of Friends who have Macs, and we know that you're a Mac. I think you can do this and you get fireworks. There's all sorts of stuff, right?
That's right. I don't know if you've seen those either. You can do like rock on and get like a dance party going. So when I'm ready to drop the real gems, dude, we're gonna get the laser show going.
I love it.
When you look at the difference between, like, say, your email inbox and the community built within a Discord server, a lot of working professionals, and understandably so, they've never been on Discord. They don't know what Discord is. It's still kind of got this idea that it's a video game platform where, gamers get together and they learn and grow from each other. But when you start to look at these Web3 startups and how they are leveraging almost like this pre-metaverse world through Discord, it is incredible. It's easy to get lost because there's channels upon channels. And if you use Slack, you kind of get a general feel for this, but the idea is that you can bring people in and out of the organization without hiring them as a full-time employee. And a lot of people are doing that through what we call freelancers or contractors. But what happens when you adopt a full Web3 model where you have, let's say, it's called bounty hunters in the industry, where you have a project that needs to get done. You filled it out to bounty hunters. They don't work for the company and you don't actually pay them up front, but under a smart contract, you say you get a percentage of any of the value that we generate from the company from that project. And it doesn't even have to be, your favorite group of employees. It's send it out to 10 different small Discord groups, these DAOs, let them all work on it, send it back to you. You pick the one that you like the best, and now you're completing dozens of projects in place of the long timelines that you're used to today. And companies are doing it today, right? We're just trying to bring awareness to it.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I think there's a couple of points I want to kind of throw back to one of the things you said at the first part of that was the kind of talent, the idea of a talent marketplace. And you kind of came back full circle and talked about like the bounty hunter model. I went to the biggest HR and learning technologies conference here in the UK. I spoke to a good friend who works at a large facilities management company. We're talking global, hundreds of thousands of employees, and she went there to look for a piece of technology that enabled a talent marketplace. She said, there's nothing even close that in that world. But what you're suggesting here is that, well, it's not even in that world, right? It already exists. It's just not in the sphere of knowledge of this industry, which can't even recognize its existence, because you say Discord and they're like, what's a Discord? And then you kind of go, well, therefore you absolutely definitely don't know what you're talking about, because it's not called a Discord. But and then that brings me to my next point, and one of the things we're doing at the moment. So we partner with an esports team. One of our primary partners is with an esports team. They're based over in the UK, called 1J Esports, and we are transferring the skills they have as content creators, community managers, and the autonomous way they work into organizations. So that's what we work with them on. Like, we've built programs that help people come on board with it, and Discord is just one of the things, like, we uncovered in one of the sessions. We're talking about community management as a principle. And it's like, okay, so what does this mean? What does this mean for the Gara Show on YouTube? Give him a follow for sure. But what does this mean in his world? How is he using Discord for his work? And it's multifaceted, right? Because it enables you to be multifaceted at its very core. He isn't kind of stuck in this rigid kind of work mode. And he's late 20s, so he's not young and he's not old, but it's not like this is emerging. This is emerged and is here. This is the other thing that baffles me, right? Is that, especially esports, we look at esports as an industry. It's bigger than film, it's bigger than music. Yet the people we listen and hear and talk to are film and music stars. They're at the Met Gala a couple of weeks ago, right? There's no one in esports or content creation in there. Yet these are the people that are defining. I love what you said. They're defining the future right before our very before our eyes, but certainly some of the people I speak to, not before their eyes at all, because it's a hidden world for them, but not intentionally. No one's hiding from them, but they're so blinkered into what the current version of world of work looks like. They're not they're not understanding that pace of change and how society is moving with technology outside the world of work, which is rapidly evolving, way, way, way quicker than it is at work. So my question to you is then, how does anyone keep on top of it? That isn't you and me, that it isn't our jobs to keep on top of it. How is an organization of 10,000 people supposed to look outside the world of work and bring some of that stuff in and that new thinking?
Yeah, first and foremost, watch this live stream. You're learning a lot, hopefully. Right? There's a lot, dude. And Toby, I love just the way that you described that, right? Because I feel the need to be like, let's define what an esports team is, because I don't know if, like, a lot of people know what that is, right? Which you and we talk about it. Oh yeah, it's electronic sports. I play video games professionally. I'm on a team. I go to a giant arena. They're building tons of them all over the world. And I go and I make tons of money playing video games, and I stream it on Twitch. And what is Twitch, right? We're just like backpedaling, like, oh my gosh, how much learning needs to happen. And when you go to HR Tech, when you go to these big conferences, you see a lot of like HR language, HR techie kind of plays, but you're not seeing the undercurrent of new technologies that are changing everything. Discord, period, changes everything. What is that like? Does that even make sense to an HR professional today? Would they even know how to get on Discord? Would they even know how to manage a channel? Would they even know what young people they need to hire to bring in to manage their Discord? And so, first off, before I answer your question, we are addressing a huge issue with the way that corporations work today. It's that they are not prepared for the younger generation to enter the workforce because they have no idea how they talk. They have no idea how they work. They have no idea how they collaborate. And trust me, they're not just lazy or entitled or can't make eye contact or all the excuses they make. They are more social and more connected than we ever were. It's just, we don't know what that looks like. We don't understand what it feels like to have a Discord, to be on TikTok, to stitch a video. Like, all of these elements are ways that they have found to communicate through technology that we need to learn and need to be updated on very, very, very quickly. How do we stay updated? Here comes your question, right? How do we do it? It's a hard one for me, right? Because what I tend to want to say is speak their language, start living the way that they live. It's like, are you on Instagram? Are you just following memes, or do you need to like set up an alert for future of work? Or are you in a Discord channel? Why don't you start finding Discord channels that you like? Guarantee there's like a quilting Discord channel, and there's like interests out there that you can already start connecting to. It's just, again, dude, and maybe what I'm saying is I don't have a good answer around how do you get them connected in? Do you know how to get on a live stream on YouTube? I see a few of our followers do, like Priyanshu is here, Josh Adams is here. But are we reaching the audience in the way that we need to? Is what a lot of companies need to solve.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's such an interesting point, because there is an element of it's generational, right? That is part of it, because there are people like you and me that have grown up in an evolving world of technology, and you kind of have to keep up with it. We just learned not to keep still with technology. I wouldn't say all of our generation have done that, but some have. But any older generations are kind of stuck in their ways. If I just look at the amount of people I'm connected to that use Facebook as their primary social media platform, you're like, I honestly thought Facebook had probably died a death now. I thought,
it should have.
Facebook should be winding it down. I know they're winding down their workplace variant, the workplace version of Facebook. That's being sunsetted. So it's like Facebook has been dying for years, yet there's still a huge swathe of people that use that as their primary method. And it's like, that's one of the reasons you're also held back, right? Not only are you not using the most forefront tech in the workplace, you're also not using it in your personal life. So you're just being left behind. Yeah.
And to their credit, right? A lot of it's a very complex and layered, algorithm here, because a lot of these platforms aren't necessarily designed for them, right? I feel like, my mom loves Facebook because she's still getting content that resonates with her. If she got on TikTok, it'd be like just overwhelming and saturated and just doesn't feel right to her.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, social media is really good at putting content in front of us that we want to see. So we're seeing us siloed off to what's actually out there and just hearing what we want to hear, right? That's a huge political problem that we've seen. And it's also, a work problem. So I first joined TikTok before it was even TikTok. If anyone remembers Musical.ly, Musical.ly was kind of like they were both apps at the same time. And it eventually TikTok purchased Musical.ly, all 18 million subscribers, and then launched, right? But it started off as a way for teens to do dance moves. And TikTok still kind of has that rap, right? You do lip sync and dancing and all of this stuff, but it's evolved so much since then, right? It is, I go there for a lot of work news. I go there for a lot of employee listening. What are employees actually feeling? What is going viral? What is tracking? And then I actually extract that information, turn it into a video that makes sense for a LinkedIn audience or for a Facebook audience so that you can see what I'm seeing, right? So it's kind of trying to bridge the gap there, but I'm just highlighting that it is difficult to stay on top of it, especially when you're talking AI, right? Like,
yeah.
AI is moving fast. It's going to take your job. Nobody knows what that looks like, but everyone knows that it's coming and everyone's kind of on the edge. Some people are using AI and loving it. It's a part of their daily routine now. Some of them won't even touch it. So what does that mean, right? And so I guess the question we should be asking is, how do you beat change overload? Maybe that's an interesting thing to kind of chat about.
But like, I suppose there's there's got to be some sort of motivation behind it as well. So I'll pick up you up on the thing you said about employee listening. This is the great leveler of employee experience in technology, is that people can socialize and talk about employers with way more freedom than they ever have. And they can also do it in areas where employers can't see it. And more often than
Yeah.
not, that's where it's happening. Because even, we get these viral videos every now and again on TikTok, which are demonstrating like the absolutely abhorrent behavior of some corporations. And usually their HR department as well for good measure. So those things go viral, and in some instances, employees don't even know that that's a thing, right? That conversation's happening. That you can get a lot of employee listening from those social media channels, your Discord servers, your TikTok accounts. All these places have that insight. And bring it full circle to about kind of how we started the conversation, right? That how do you improve and redefine employee experience? Well, there's a lot of that information that's why I got into the gig that I got into, right? It's because I was just seeing so much of this content and going, the way the world of work is currently structured is going to crumble in the coming years in most organizations, because people will just move away from it. Younger generations are a lot more upwardly mobile, not upwardly mobile, but maybe horizontally mobile.
Right. Yeah.
I'll go where the joy is and the money. But I worked with an organization and predominantly worked with their graduate population. And I must have spoken to 50, 60 graduates that just entered this workforce. And most of them were fundamentally unhappy. They'd worked for a great they've been entered into a great organization, historically great organization, but it wasn't meeting the very thing that they needed. And it made them desperately unhappy, to the point where they were kind of evaluating their pay against someone who was working in a checkout in a supermarket. And they were like, well, the amount of hours I work, the amount of stress I put under, actually, I would just be better off working in a supermarket. And you're like, well, yeah, so why don't you? Like, there's no, I might get this big promotion one day. Well, yeah, but is it worth it? Like,
right. Especially on top of quiet promoting, like we're promoting you now without a raise. Like we're moving the wrong direction when it comes to employee experience design, right? And Great Resignation 2.0, which is going to be so much worse than the first one, it is coming, right? And you make so many good points, right? A lot of people are asking for a demotion because, right, like the work-life balance is worth it to them. Like this corporate ladder doesn't make sense. And you mentioned too, kind of like these new structures that we're already just moving away from. Here's a great fun example, right? There's a worker at Chick-fil-A who would make a TikTok every day. There's an employee provided meal, and she would eat that meal on TikTok, and she loves Chick-fil-A. She would just be like, this is so good. And she was getting millions and millions and millions of views. It was an amazing way to advertise. But Chick-fil-A's PR team reached out and said, this is against the handbook. You can't do this. And they pretty much pushed her out, right? She didn't necessarily have to leave the company, but she's like, okay, after this, I'm out. Not even a week later, she is over at Shake Shack doing videos for Shake Shack. And like, companies need to wake up, right? Like, she's providing marketing that is expected on TikTok today. And sure, old school Chick-fil-A marketing, it still works. You're a huge organization. I get it. But man, the way that people are just going, and younger companies are just going to pick up on influencer marketing. They're going to pick up on all these elements, and they're going to provide employees with way more. Imagine her, right? Her paycheck is probably like $15 to $20 an hour at Chick-fil-A. Fine, that's great. She's getting millions of views though on TikTok. And if we give her a portion of the ad revenue, right, or the sales that is coming in, she is now a part owner in her own brand that is tied to another brand. And that is esports. We're getting 2 thumbs up. We're getting fireworks.
Yeah,
man. Here we go. That right there is kind of the natural next step to why should I work for you and do these like, oh, you have to work this way and you have to check the box, right? Traditionally, you get a job, you have to do exactly what you say. You have to do exactly what the company says. And that does not make sense for the entire generation.
this is interesting. I've had this debate with numerous employers, because they wanted me to use my social media following to help their company. I'm like, you don't get my social media following. That's mine. Like, you can't monetize my audience for your benefit unless I benefit, and I don't benefit out of that. Like, you just want me to do that? It's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. I'm not going to do that contractually. I'm not obliged to. It was never part of the job description, so I'm well within my right to refuse. But like, there's no incentive for me personally to use that unless I get so big, which I'm not, and I can monetize my audience just off my own back. But like, so when you employ someone, do you have everything that they can offer? Like, what? I think this is where like contracting, but with between the employer becomes really interesting, because like, do you get their social media accounts and access to their audience? Like, no one contracts that, but there's a level of assumption that you might get it, especially if you're in business development and sales. But you're like, it's quite valuable to you as a company.
Yeah, dude, you're highlighting a really hot button here. And please, HR, if you are listening to this, let this be the takeaway, right? Employees work off of a contract traditionally. It's they are contractually obligated to do XYZ. And that is such a one-way relationship. It is, I'm the boss, you're the employee. I tell you what to do. You have to do it exactly how I say. And if you don't, someone else is in line behind you to take your job, right? You should be grateful for a job. That is no longer the case. That will no longer fly. What you highlighted, Toby, is this two-way relationship, right? Company wants something from you. They can't just extract it. They used to, probably. In today's world, it's like, no, my value is my value. If I'm going to share my value with you, you better be putting up just as much, if not more value for me. And that's a whole new layer. That's a whole new mindset of employee experience design, don't you think? It's no longer, what are the little things we can do to keep people happy? Provide childcare, and we're going on this retreat to Bermuda. It's, what can I do for you? What can you do for me? And how can this symbiotic relationship add value?
If you ever become an employer and you're offering free childcare and trips to Bermuda, that is actually quite appealing to me. So when you say,
I'm looking for them, dude. I'm looking all over. Where are they? Right. That's the best case scenario in most companies, but it's not happening. Not even close.
Oh, there are no UK companies taking their employees to Bermuda. Ibiza at most. I saw that on LinkedIn today. But like, anyway, super interesting. So I had a question and it just literally flew out my head to talk about.
Well, I do want to say this, and this is going to spark a little bit more conversation. I honestly don't know how long we go, but let's just, you tell me when to cut me off. There is a crisis of fulfillment at work. I think that's the crux of employee engagement, is that we're relentlessly pushing towards productivity and we're not giving 2 cents to employee fulfillment. And what does an employee need to be fulfilled? We can talk about culture all day. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, and all the elements of why companies recognize that that's true, but aren't, either the system isn't willing or they as leaders are not willing to do the real work about helping employees be fulfilled. Because I guarantee this is what they're going to say. What do you want? What do you need at work to be fulfilled? They're going to be like, well, if I'm going to work this hard, I deserve more than a paycheck. I deserve a portion of that at least. And this is not just a commission. Yeah. This is not arbitrary equity in the company. I want ownership over the work that I'm doing. Also, if you are going to implement some new policy and I, as a frontline worker, think it's garbage because I am on the front lines and you are not, Mr. CEO, like, I know that you're seen from above, but if we can't match our visions together and put out a policy that makes sense for everybody, I sure as hell am not working for you, because there are companies that are going to offer that. And there are companies today that just cannot or will not. You know what? We could blame capitalism if we want. We could blame bad leaders, greedy organizations. Who cares at this point? What really matters is, are you fulfilled as an employee? If not, in the corporate world, you're going to jump to a decentralized autonomous organization, mixing and matching several streams of income, opening up the app, hitting work, and you're going to, and this opens up a whole nother window, right? I'm just going to say it briefly, right? You talked about a global talent marketplace, right? The idea is, what if we had all of your talent and all of your skills kind of not just in a self-reported resume? We think you're not lying to us. You probably do have these skills, but dude, I just put that on a resume myself. How about instead of that, we imprint your skills on the blockchain? What that means is that we have a record of every project you've done, of every class you've taken, of every certification. It's all on the blockchain. So now we don't have to take your word for it. We can trust that you have the skills and the abilities. And once we have a group of workers, we all know their skills, we all know how far along they are. Now we can leverage AI to match them on global projects with teams that make sense in the flexibility that you want. It's going to be as easy as opening the app, hitting go, and off you are working. Not necessarily for yourself, because right now you can freelance, but it's still a huge grind. And not necessarily for the man. It's kind of like the Uber of work. But again, Uber is centralized. We need a decentralized organization to remove the middleman so that the profits flow back to the contributors, the people who are actually doing the work. Like that is, I'm getting fired up now. Apologize. But that is the future that I envisioned. That is the book that we wrote. And if you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you, like, because it's coming.
I love that because like Uber always just gives the illusion of gig economy. Like it might have been at the start when there was like quite a small number, but it's like for all intents and purposes now they're an employer. Like regardless of what you say about it, and Deliveroo and all these kind of the food equivalents are exactly the same. So it's like because they are, as you say, centralized, it has to be decentralized to make that truly work. What is it in? I think it's in Westworld season 3. This is a bit of a throwback, but they have the bounty hunter app. I think right. Aaron Paul is in it, and he kind of like every job he does is done through this app, and everyone like they do it, and whoever does it like totally. I totally see it. The thought I had has now come back into my mind, so I'm going to catch it out of the air, put it back, and it's going to come out my mouth. Equitable relationships between employees and employers. Absolutely. This is one of the reasons why I do what I do, is that I set out about a year ago on a mission to design equitable relationships between employee and employers, but I uncovered a real problem in that no one's measuring the equitable relationship between employee and employers. So we looked at like classic HR or forward thinking HR metrics, and like employee lifetime value was a thing. It's like one of the most common, most forward thinking things, like how much money do we get out of our people? Like, okay, cool. It's a good metric. How much performance, how much revenue we're getting? I get it. That makes sense. But the thing we stumbled upon, which we feel like absolute mugs for, because it feels like this should have been a thing, but we designed employer lifetime value. How much value are you giving your people? And like, okay, so we'll look for it. Someone must be measuring that, and no one's measuring it, which is absolute testament to everything you're saying. That the world we have created to date prioritizes the employer over employee, and this is how that situation occurs. So what we've done is we've created those, taken that existing metric, put the new metric together, and you understand the live tension between those. How much value you're getting out and how much value you're getting in. What's the ratio between those? And what are you doing that impacts that balance? And tell your people about it as well. Like all of a sudden, especially here in the UK, we've just figured out a way to scrape that data, and we can now do it for pretty much any limited company here in the UK. I can tell you how equitable their relationship is. You can give me a company. I'm not going to do it now, but you give me a company, I can tell you how it is. Some of them are incredible. Virgin Atlantic. We looked at Virgin Atlantic. Their ratio is 1 to 11, pretty much.
Wow.
Looked at another company, 1 to 1.24. And you're like, wow, okay, that ratio is way off. And then you look at the actual tangible value that they're giving in terms of just like the cash value of it. And you're like, okay, I reckon I can tell you how happy your people are just by looking at the numbers, not even talking to them. And then odds on, we talk to them, and yeah, we're pretty much right. It's giving us a real insight into these organizations. So I think that's the thing that's been missing from the world, is not only the desire to want to create equitable relationships, but the actual measurement and motivation to make it a reality. because everyone says, "Oh, we want to make people happy. We want to make sure everyone has the best time at work." Blah 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 blah. And the problem there is that the metric is human happiness and satisfaction, which is like no business owner is going to go to the board and say, "We've had a really great year because all our employees are really happy." Yeah, but how much money did you make? No, but all our people are really, really happy. And great. So what? Tell me how much money you made. Like, that's just the way businesses are designed. So you have to be able to link those two, because if you can't, then what a waste of time trying to make people happy.
Well, and don't just throw that phrase away, right? That's just how business is designed. It is designed for shareholder experience. It
Yeah.
is designed to keep the people, a few people at the top with the money, fatter and richer than everyone else, right? And it's hard to prove. It's getting easier, but it's traditionally been hard to prove that a happy employee has been productive. And the culture work takes so long, right?
Yeah.
And you don't see results for a long time, whereas we are just obsessed with quarter to quarter to quarter. And of course, employees are going to get the hit if they don't service, right? We saw the Great Resignation. Please take care of your people. To ooh, employers are in power again. And what do we do with that? We value shareholder experience 10 times out of 10. We don't care about employee happiness. And when you don't take care of the masses, your masses, I don't know how else to say it, but when the pendulum swings back to an employee economy, what do they think is going to happen?
Well, we're going to bring I'm going to try and wrap us up here. We'll get you back on for sure. And I think we need to book ourselves for like,
We need to do a Joe Rogan 2.5 hours, like we got to.
we're going to do
check it
it.
out.
We're going to do it. Like, the summer's going to be quiet for everybody. So let's just like spend a hot summer in August, like just 3
Yes.
hours on LinkedIn. The, one of our meeting rooms, our virtual meeting rooms in our Rome office, is called Bournville. So I don't know. Have you heard the name Bournville before?
No.
So Bournville is the founder of the Cadbury chocolate company here in the UK.
Oh, the candy. Isn't that candy?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So this Quaker founded Cadbury, created Bournville. Bournville is a village that still exists today in Birmingham, in the Birmingham area. Now, this village was created because he wanted to create a village for his employees. He created housing, hospitals, schools, social areas. He created this whole community for his employees because he kind of knew, if I treat my people with respect and give them exactly what they want, then they'll probably perform way, way better. And this happened in Victorian times. This is the baffling thing, right? That there were a lot of bad factories in Victorian times here in the UK, but this is like over 100 years old. But somewhere along the line, no one looked at that as a concept that was scalable and achievable, because costs money to provide housing, costs money to provide healthcare, costs money to provide any sort of social services as part of employment. And that hits the bottom line. So we're going to take that out straight away. And you're like, but surely they had something there. Surely Bournville had something. And that's what I want to kind of finish our conversation on. And Josh, I just want you to go away and have a look at Bournville. And the village still exists today. It's not linked to the candy company, but it's still there.
I'm getting Willy Wonka vibes, right? Is it like, candy cane poles and the whole 9 yards? Be amazing.
I've got to tell you, no disrespect to that. So the chocolate factory still exists, and they do like a guided tour. It is one of the most depressing experiences I've ever been on. It's not a great place to go. Like, you think, oh, I'm gonna have a tour around a chocolate factory, and it's really dull. It's really dull. How can you take something so exciting and make it so dull? But that is for another time. Josh, before we go, we end our live stream the same way every time. We take a deck of the Freeformers What If cards. I get you to pick a card, and it's just going to inspire the last final thought that we have on the live stream today. So
I love it. Let's do it.
Here's the deck. I'm going to flick through the deck, and you just tell me when you want to stop.
Stop.
Okay, we've stopped here. Here we go. So, as an employer, what if we had a community of people wanting to join our team? What if we created a community of people that wanted to work for our company? How would we go about doing it? What do you think?
Whew. Well, interests have to align, right? They're not going to work for you if there's no alignment on what they want, right? So I think getting there first and foremost is going to be important, right? And you can create purpose in a lot of different ways, right? The traditional JFK said, there's a janitor helping us put a man on the moon because he's a part. We're creating that purpose, right? I'm not talking about like fabricated purpose. I'm talking about like figure that out. And once you figure that out, the community just kind of comes. I mean, look at the work that Patagonia has done. I feel like they spent a lot of time just like, what do you guys want to wear? Like we know the people and we are the people. How do we build a successful brand for them? And instead of tipping the scale into how do we turn a corporate profit by doing more XYZs, they always have had their client in the room, and their client are their employees, and their employees are their client. And they've always stayed true to that. Let my people go surfing. They wrote a book about it, that's how you do it. And let me take it just one step further. A Web3 version of that is a group of kids online who are drone enthusiasts, and they love to like play with drones, and it's exciting to them, but they realize that like the battery life is not long. Your drone can only stay up for an hour or so, and we need them to stay up for 12 days. So they design a Discord server and they build it themselves because they are hobbyists and they love it. And they sell it to a government entity, or they sell it to Boeing. They're probably doing better work than Boeing for all we know, right? So I'm just highlighting a potential example of what it looks like to build a community and to drive value that is scalable and you can monetize. That's kind of what a DAO will look like, is you working on like passionate projects with a lot of people who love the same stuff. And yes, there's going to be politics, but that's community. So how do you do that? I would say, one, if you're not listening to your people today, start listening to your people and find out what they want and then work to give it to them.
I love it. I love it. The last project I did for the last person that ever employed me was a human-centered design project for learning and development. And they kind of designed a training program off the back of all this great human insight. I was like, that's not what they want. Like, why are we designing training? Like, clearly they're telling you exactly what they want. And because of your defined role within an organization, you've pivoted straight to the thing that they aren't even passionate about or asking for. Like, it's crazy. And I think that just shows how broken the current world of work is. And I think that's a beautiful way to end this this live stream. Josh, you have been amazing. We definitely are best friends now. 100%. Will you come back on Freeformers and Friends in a couple of weeks, couple of months, and we can let's do the 2-hour stream that we both want to do?
I'm only coming back if you come visit us in Minneapolis very soon. So,
well, first, where am I going? Callie will tell me. 1st of October, we're going to be meeting in person. So I look forward to that. It's going to be awesome. Josh, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Wow. So there we have it. Josh Drean, what a guy. The book, the vibe. I think there is so much conversation left in that to be had. But we're going to have to save that for a different time on a different day, maybe a different season. Who knows? But we're going to try and get Josh booked back on Freeformers and Friends. But for now, I wish everybody watching either a great Thursday day, if you're over the pond, or over here in the UK. Go get yourself a beer. Have a great Thursday evening. And I'll catch you all in 3 weeks, because I am on a 2-week break. So I'm taking a little bit of a break from live streaming. We will be back with Sam Eaton in 3 weeks' time. Same time, every Thursday, apart from the